I feel unworthy to perform this task, since Abdullah Abu Said is an eminent literary personality, a public intellectual of renown, and an educationist in the true sense of the word. He has brought knowledge to the masses through his world-famous Bishwa Shahidya Kendra, built from the ground up through his own blood, sweat and tears, into a haven where hundreds of thousands of youth and indeed people of all ages can sip from the cup of knowledge accumulated over generations, not just from Bangladeshi authors and scholars, but from works assembled from around the world. The idea of taking knowledge to the masses is premised on the inspirational belief that education is not just about attending classes and taking exams, but is motivated by the hunger innate to all people to move beyond themselves and acquire knowledge for the love of knowledge and not for any instrumental purpose such as acquiring a degree or advancing a career. To achieve this noble mission, Abu Said sought to inculcate the reading habit, beginning at a time where over half the population were not yet literate. Public libraries were rare outside urban areas, and bookshops were virtually non-existent. His mobile libraries, traveling across Bangladesh, became a symbol of hope for generations who had never had the privilege of borrowing, let alone owning a book, would long to read about a world inherited by more privileged, a world outside their imagination, beyond Bangladesh, a world of the imagination created by literature penned by the creative artists of the world. To sustain this Herculean enterprise over 4 decades, and to sustain it in the digital age, where books may become an endangered asset, is the work of a true visionary. Let me take on from there to my main presentation. We live in a highly unequal society which has progressively become more unequal. There are many sources of inequality, Boishomo as it is popularly known. But in my view, the disparities in access to education remain one of the most pernicious factors. I use the pejorative word pernicious because this is an avoidable disparity and reflects the unjust nature of a society. Inequitable access to education eventually influences the life chances faced by all human beings. If a person is deprived of a decent education because of the income of their parents or by their identity or place of residence, compared to a more privileged person, she or he begins the race of life with a disadvantage, which in most cases perpetuates and serves to divide society into the privileged and less privileged. Many other injustices originate from the injustice society, which require both political and societal interventions to bring about structural change. But democratizing access to education is a positive good which can be realized without undue revolutionary change. A number of societies in Europe, East and Southeast Asia, as well as Cuba in the Americas, have built their educational system on more democratic principles. The economic system may be built on capitalistic, market-driven principles, but as a society, they have been more just in providing more equitable opportunities for its advancement through a more egalitarian educational system. Interestingly enough, these societies have also emerged as more efficient and productive societies with higher GDP growth rates, high per capita incomes, and the most impressive human development indicators. South Asian countries in general, with perhaps Sri Lanka as a deviant, have remained, in spite of impressive economic progress, unequal and highly unjust societies. Such inequities originate in a variety of social ills where, in my view, the deep disparities in their educational systems serve as one of the more deeply embedded sources of bourgeoisie. Sadly, Bangladesh, notwithstanding the transformative changes which have taken place in our society and economy, have seen disparities in our educational system widen over the years. Such a process has served to infect to cancerous proportions the social and political injustices which have disfigured our political journey. In order to provide some perspective to our unjust educational system, it is useful to explore what sets both Europe and Southeast Asia apart from us. In the case of Europe, both Western and Eastern Europe, including what was the USSR, their most socially progressive public action was located in their commitment to democratize their educational system. This commitment originated in the socialist system, which emerged out of the Russian Revolution of 1917, which created the USSR, and the assumption to power in the wake of World War II of communist regimes in the feudalistic societies of Eastern Europe. These societies, whatever may have been their authoritarian features, were committed to transform highly inegalitarian societies into more equitable societies where democratizing education was an important instrument of public policy. In the case of Western Europe, including the United Kingdom, the democratization of their educational systems was inspired by the assumption to power of the Labour Party in the UK and by various social democratic parties which assumed office at the end of World War II. The Scandinavian social democracies, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland, as well as countries such as Netherlands, led the way in attempting to build more egalitarian societies. Both Italy and France had strong communist parties which created political pressure for constructing a more egalitarian order. West Germany, which moved along the capitalist path, also put great emphasis on democratizing their education, healthcare, and public welfare systems to stave off threats from socialist forces within and beyond their borders. The distinguishing feature of the educational system in all these European countries was the move to universalize the provision of quality public education. The one exception to this was the UK, where the Labour Party did not do away with the private school system, but created much greater opportunities for graduates from the state school system to move on to higher education by making access to universities free of cost. Children from working class families, if they were talented, could enter Oxford, Cambridge, and other well-known universities, whatever may be the economic circumstances of their parents. The educational trajectory of the European countries, both East and West, was much more democratically oriented than in the UK. In all these countries, education was seen as a public good, provided to all citizens free of cost, from preschool to the postgraduate level, through a system of universal public education. school and college education was state financed and required that a high proportion of the national and local budgets were invested in public education as well as a public healthcare system. Under such a system, all children, whether the offspring of prime ministers and business elite or workers and school teachers, attended a common school system. Under such a system, rich or poor, leaders, academics or workers, all became stakeholders in the state of the educational system. As a result, enormous political pressure was invested in ensuring that public education was of the highest quality. Such a system democratized opportunity for children from working class backgrounds who could graduate to become ministers, professors, and Nobel laureates. In the USSR and Eastern Europe, the scope for upward mobility was even stronger. Interestingly enough, this commitment to quality education, provided through a state-driven common school system, put Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and Singapore apart from their South Asian and some Southeast Asian counterparts, such as the Philippines and Thailand. The communist countries, such as the People's Republic of China and Vietnam, because of their revolutionary and ideological antecedents, put emphasis on public education right from the beginning and had abolished the system of private education in the aftermath of their revolution. In both the communist and some more explicitly capitalist societies, such as Japan, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan, public education through a common school system was the preferred mode of choice. Private schools were available as in South Korea, but were generally of lower quality than the state schools, so that the majority of the school children were beneficiaries of high-quality public education. In these Asian societies, education was highly valued by all classes. Significant resources, much higher than in any South Asian country, were invested in education. An enormous effort was made to ensure that education of the highest quality was provided in all state schools. The argument by Amartya Sen that the more efficient and productive nature of the East Southeast Asian economies owes to higher investment in education compared to South Asia is correct. The elite of these countries, including its political leadership, thus ensured that the quality of public education should not just be the best available, but should be the best in the world. The end product of a largely state-driven public education system can be measured through the International Program for International Standard Assessment. It is known as PISA, scoring system, which is scientifically designed and professionally administered through common global tests to evaluate 15-year-old school pupils for their scholastic performance in mathematics, science, and reading. The PISA has been in operation since year 2000 and is conducted every 3 years across 79 countries. From the outset of the tests, the West European countries such as Switzerland, Netherlands, and Finland, along with the East Asian countries, outperformed all countries, including Europe and North America. In most recent years, when China exposed itself to the PISA tests in selected areas such as Shanghai, it topped the global list, along with Singapore, followed by Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and Hong Kong. Providing high-quality education to its people, irrespective of levels of income, equipped these Asian countries with a high-quality labor force which has contributed to making this region, led by China, into globally competitive economies which have overtaken the West, including the United States, in many areas of development and technology. In contrast to East Asian countries, which ranked at the top of the PISA lists, India ranked 73rd out of 81 countries, and eventually opted out of the PISA system out of a sense of embarrassment at its low global ranking. Sri Lanka may have done better than India, but did not compete. Other South Asian countries such as Pakistan and Bangladesh would not even qualify for the PISA system due to the poor quality of our education system. National school evaluation tests conducted in Bangladesh by the Department of Public Education in 2018 indicated that in grade 3 only 44% of those tested crossed the desired threshold of qualification for Bangla, while 34% attained this grade for maths. In class 5, the desired level was attained by 44% for Bangla and 32% for math. The recent trend of grade inflation, which reported high pass levels and GP5 ratings, deceived few people into believing that significant improvements had been registered in our educational system. The weaker performance in South Asia compared to East Asia largely owes to its fractured and hence inequitable education system. In India, Pakistan and Bangladesh, the education system is trifurcated between private, public and religious school systems catering to different social and economic classes. The private schooling system is further divided into an English medium and a vernacular system. The English medium private schools provide the best quality of schooling, catering to a higher income group willing to pay higher fees for such an education. If we focus on Bangladesh, we may note that the apex of our educational system, we have the English medium schools which have proliferated. These schools vary in quality. At the highest level, various international schools, once designed to serve expatriate residents in Bangladesh, are now largely occupied by children of the Bangladesh elite. These schools charge fees in the range of those demanded by international schools outside Bangladesh, and at higher levels than some of the top private schools in India. Many local schools such as Scholastica, Sunbeams and Green Herald are less expensive but cater to the upper middle classes. They have their own campuses and long waiting lists. There is a third category of English medium schools now drawing in the local middle class, lower middle class and even children from working class families who believe that they need an English medium education to advance their children in Bangladesh or perhaps to equip them for overseas migration. Most of the English medium schools educate their students to take international exams, such as the O and A level tests under the UK system or the International Baccalaureate system. Under these systems, particularly the O and A level systems, Bangladeshi students are producing some excellent results, which are globally competitive. Obviously, students in these English medium schools are not exposed to the PISA tests, or they would score much higher than the Bangladesh average. The same possibility of higher valuation in the PISA tests would apply in India for students at Doon School, St. Paul's in Darjeeling or St. Xavier's in Kolkata, as it would apply to elite private schools such as HSN College in Lahore or Karachi Grammar School. In all these South Asian countries, little effort has been made to measure differences in learning quality between the elite English medium private schools and the public and private schools serving the masses. In India today, private schools constructed on large campuses with facilities available to those of a 5-star hotel have been set up to attract the children of the super elite. Under such a system of education, English medium private education has evolved into an elitist project designed to divide society into levels not even conceived in Europe and North America. In Bangladesh, as perhaps in India and Pakistan, a small fraction of the elite, even today, prefer to send their children abroad if they can get into the best foreign schools, and will only opt for the new elite schools at home if they cannot make the grade abroad. In Bangladesh, graduates from the top private schools would mostly opt to seek their higher education abroad. But at the next level, they would opt for the 110 private universities now offering English medium higher education. At the third level, we have a few better quality Bangla medium schools, such as the cadet colleges, and private schools such as Vicar-un-Nisa and St. Joseph's. These schools serve the middle class and lower middle class children of professionals or civil servants. At the fourth tier, we have the largest number of schools, providing education to children of the lower, middle and working class in the rural and urban areas, mostly state schools but also private schools. Many of the private secondary schools seek political patronage for quasi-state sponsorship, where the government pays the salaries of all the teachers. Finally, we have the madrasa, where the Alia Madrasa offers private education at the level of the primary and secondary state schools. In contrast, the Qawmi madrasas caters to the lowest income group, where they provide both food and shelter to many of those who are too poor or vulnerable to use the normal school system. The school system feeds into a divided higher educational system, where again the elite send their children abroad. The next year from the English medium schools send their children to the private universities. Most of these private universities can hardly qualify as universities, since they are not equipped to provide a universal, multidisciplinary education. Most such universities are little more than polytechnics, which graduate close to 80 to 90% of their students from functional disciplines, such as business administration and computer science, which are more oriented to serve employment seekers. The principal casualties of such a system have been the public universities, where such institutions as Dhaka University were once our pride and joy. These universities largely cater to lower income households who cannot afford to pay fees in the profit-making private universities. Many of these private universities do provide scholarships for the income deprived, but this covers only a small proportion of their intake. The governance failures in the public universities, the politicization of the administration and teaching faculties, and the domination of student bodies by a politicized mafiosi masquerading as student leaders have corrupted the higher education system to a level where surgical interventions may be needed to restore both administrative discipline and quality education to the campus. The significant feature of Bangladesh education system lies in the reality that the ruling class at both the political and economic level has opted out of the public education system. If we were to do a poll of the MPs of the erstwhile parliament, along with the members of the Dhaka and Gulshan Club, we would find that close to 100% of this elite have sent their children to English medium schools. Many of the elite may themselves be products of Bangla medium education and make all the right noises in favor of Bangla on 21st February. But their vision of the future lies in another culture which is emerging both as a cause and effect of a divided society. The challenge for those who aspire to construct a less inequitable, more inclusive society in Bangladesh is to move towards constructing a more egalitarian educational system. which democratizes opportunities for all, where the 5 different classes of society divided by education will not be locked into an unequal competition to build a better life for themselves. If we cannot close this divide in our education, more social conflict lies ahead of us. I am not an expert on education to advise on how such a system may come about or the nature of such a system. Much indeed has been written about improving the quality of education, but little has been said about the unequal and disequalizing nature of the system. I will therefore attempt to present a few thoughts on what may be attempted both in the short or medium term to democratize our educational system. At the first stage, our goal must be to rebuild our public education system to at least the level where it provides education of quality comparable to what is available in our better Bangla medium institutions, such as the cadet colleges. 6 education commissions have been established since 1972 with the objective of reforming and upgrading education. We cannot judge the serviceability of the reforms recommended by these commissions because they were never seriously implemented. It is not surprising that the interim government plans to establish yet another commission for education reform without inquiring why recommended reforms from previous commissions were unimplemented and that the quality of education remains so poor at all levels. In the short run, where systemic change may take time, we can at least do something to improve educational opportunities for lower income households. Here, both private and state schools, with some government support, could provide selective opportunities for those from lower income households to access quality education. This would be addressed by providing scope for a rising share of the seats in the cadet colleges, as well as top state and private schools, to provide entrance to low-income households through provision of scholarships. Over the medium term, the government may invest in setting up one high-quality secondary school bifurcated into a general and technical section in every single thana, which would exclusively cater to lower-income households. Under similar education reform in India, enacted by the Congress government led by Manmohan Singh, a provision was made that all private schools, including elite schools, will reserve places for children of low-income households living in the neighborhood of the schools. This provision did not bear fruit due to a variety of legal challenges from the private schools. How far such a model would work in Bangladesh remains to be explored and could be considered by a prospective education commission. As a precondition for moving to upgrade the quality of education, the interim government and all prospective elected governments must commit themselves to at least triple the budget for education from 1.5% to at least 5 to 6% of GDP. However, this large investment in education would only be meaningful if there is a quantum advancement in the quality of governance in the educational system. Such measures as bribery to access appointments as teachers, investments of time by teachers in private tuition, and collective actions by teachers to resist discipline will need to be addressed. Systems of transparency to evaluate performance and accountability to reward or penalize performance must be established at all levels of the educational system. A more challenging goal, if not for the interim government, then the next elected government, might be to re-engage the leadership and those associated with or serving the government with the system of public education. Once upon a time, all political leaders and activists, our best academics, many who became globally recognized, quite a lot of you sitting over here, were all educated in Bangla medium schools. many from Zilla schools up to the matriculation level. Bangabandhu aspired to strengthen Bangla education by making it the medium of instruction and governance at all levels in the aftermath of liberation. Unfortunately, this important democratic and nation-building transition could not be matched by sustaining the quality of education. Our leadership over the years, instead of seeking to invest in upgrading the quality of public education in the mother tongue, as was done in all the East, Southeast Asian countries, gradually opted out of public education and encouraged the re-emergence of English medium schools and the growth of private universities. Today, Bangladesh's ruling class no longer have any stake in improving the quality of public education because their children or grandchildren have been, are being, and will expect to be educated in quality English medium private schools and universities. Some inspirational leaders may seek to break away from this trend by sending their children to Bangla medium schools in Dhaka or Rajshahi University instead of abroad. Such a leader may make it mandatory that all candidates in their party seeking nomination as MPs must demonstrate that their children are being educated in Bangla medium schools. A Jatiyo Samsad made up of MPs who have a stake in providing quality education to their children studying in public schools and universities may then make a more serious effort to provide greater funding and governance oversight to our educational system. But such expectations remain in my fantasy. I do not know how many of you will come to share my dream. Upgrading the quality of public education remains the overarching goal because this remains the only avenue open to lower income households who cannot afford private education to improve their opportunities for social and economic advancement. To do so demands restoring discipline and governance to education. This can only begin to be realized if we can establish an accountable, inclusive, democratic process which is not captured by the forces of money and muscle. Democratizing education over the longer term will need more than just democratizing politics. We will also need to democratize society. This will need more fundamental restructuring of a social order where the divisions created by its inequitable education system can be corrected through a universal common schools program on the lines of East Asia, which provides quality education for all. The pathway to a more democratic educational system will be long and arduous, but I believe it is a mandatory journey if we genuinely aspire to build a just society. I do not expect to see such a system in my lifetime, but I leave this challenge to most of you who are assembled here to build a democratic education system for an inclusive, democratic and just Bangladesh.
এলো খবরের কাগজ, নিখাদ, নির্ভীক, নিরপেক্ষ।